Thank you very much. Good morning. Before we start, on what Eddie just mentioned on no industry on Earth making things for single use, I was reminded of the 200 million tons of single-use plastics discarded in the environment every year. So maybe sustainability is one area where the space industry can lead the way in a modest manner. Right, direct-to-device has been an extremely hot topic across the industry for a couple of years. It turns out that this, what we all thought were phones were actually devices, and that communicating directly with them became a big thing from satellites. So we have here two satellite operators, one with an existing fleet, and it turns out that some of the things you have been doing is direct-to-device, one with a fleet under construction, and Skylo, a service provider. So Jim, Vice President Asia Pacific Lynk Global, Brian Aziz, Vice President Global Sales for Iridium, Satender Yadav, Global Head Sales Engineering for Skylo. Okay, let me start maybe with a very generic question, because this is D2D is something we all talk about it like it's always been here, like we completely understand. There's a mystery to me. Why is this happening now? What's been happening in the development of technology, of components, of business models, of everything, to suddenly make it possible to communicate directly to a phone, an ordinary phone for some of you, an old Nokia feature phone even, I've seen the claim made, with a satellite 1,000 times further away than a cellular tower usually is. This is not what cell phones have been designed for. What happened?
I mean, I'm happy to kick things off. Obviously, you know, technology has come a long way over the last 25 years that we've been in service. So the satellite industry is kind of finally starting to catch up with the cellular industry in terms of standardization, collaboration with the existing infrastructure, collaboration with the existing user equipment manufacturers. So the satellite industry is starting to participate in bodies like 3GPP and collaborating with, you know, chipset manufacturers and mobile network operators allows our technology to start being unified on a single platform. So that collaboration between the two entities that were seemingly playing in opposite corners is certainly what's starting to bring direct-to-device and satellite connectivity mainstream into, you know, users and smartphones and other devices.
So getting people into the same room is all it took?
Essentially, and money, of course.
Satender, you deal with chipset vendors all the time, because one of the things that Skylo does is you certify chipsets for use over your network. Is it that easy?
I would give it two different answers to this. One is obviously when you look at the industry and ecosystem entirely, it's not driven by a single player and single entity itself, right? It takes a village to raise a kid, right? When you're talking about a new technology, something like direct-to-device, seems like pretty easy that you're just connecting a device back to satellite, which is 35,000 kilometers up in the sky. But without having a backup of the standardization ecosystem, without having the technology in terms of RAN, without having the satellite players supporting that, it's not going to happen in a day, right? So it took, obviously, people bringing everyone in the same room, that's one, obviously, and blessed by the ecosystem standardization. And the second aspect of is, were people seeing that as a market, first of all? Were they were saying that there's a value in doing this? Because if you're doing something in this, is there a adaptability and the user are able to pay for that? I think it took some time for the industry to understand, but along with that, when we work with chipsets and the module makers, they kind of work within day in, day out to enable that features for D2D, and it takes some time, but eventually that's what it is. It's bringing the ecosystem together.
Brian, Iridium had been making bits and pieces of this for a long time. For you it was called M2M, then IoT. Single burst devices is what you had been using. They are small, but they are custom made. You do have an ecosystem of, I think, a couple of 100 companies that put these things into various industrial, and then you had been trying for a long time also to make cellular phones compatible with your network by clipping various devices onto them. That never really caught true. But a lot of what's happening now in D2D must feel awfully familiar to Iridium.
Yeah, I mean, today we operate a proprietary service that requires, proprietary Iridium-enabled transceiver. But as we start getting and collaborating with the cellular ecosystem, there'll be a unified single platform or device that'll be able to seamlessly switch between cellular and satellite. There are use cases that are going to fit when we talk about the IoT market that are going to require a different level of service that will still lean towards our proprietary devices and service. And then there are use cases that maybe less mission critical that will lean towards more of the standardized platform, especially if they're migrating between cellular and satellite.
So how much remains to prove? We're still in the very early days of this market developing. Some people have extremely bullish views on it. I mean, I've seen absolutely nutty statements on hundreds of billions of dollars of money just there for the taking, if only we could. Okay, a lot of that is people pushing stocks. So they don't necessarily believe in it. But at this point, from the initial market development that you've seen, how many years is it from being a profit-making endeavor? Have any new use cases emerged, apart from connecting the unconnected? Has anything really come up because of this that is I never thought we would make money from that direction sort of event? Satender, you look poised.
Sure, I think when you look at D2D, the way we think of it is all about quality of service and user experience. The technology is not as far as today in terms of what 5G is, at least in indoors, and we're talking about outdoors. We are still starting in the very early phases of what D2D is capable of. So if you talk to me and said what needs to be proven, there's a lot of to proven in terms of can we get the same quality of service for the end devices and users who can basically switch from cellular to satellite in a similar fashion when they switch from Wi-Fi to cellular. I'm pretty sure that in this room, most of the people would be using Wi-Fi as a primary mode of communication, and cellular becomes a fallback when you step out of this hotel, right? Can satellite become another network for them when they step out of this hotel? Instead of looking cellular, can they connect to satellite and have the same quality of service? Is what everyone is aspiring for, right? When we get into a place where I don't have to worry about if I'm making a call and I can get out of this room or this hotel and I can continue making the call without any disruption. That's what we are aiming for. So yes, the point has to be proven. It's all on papers. But if you talk about, is there a business case? Is there a profit out of this? Obviously, every technology has its own way of dwelling out. So I think it's a matter of time when we see the same quality of service for the devices and for the customers to start using it, and then it becomes a commoditized cellular service for everyone, right? Now, do you see cellular first or satellite first? That's a question, and that's a conflict which will happen when you see the capability of satellite players bringing out the same what MNOs has done over decades and decades. I don't think it's going to take a decade to prove the same quality of service. It's going to be much faster this time. And I think I'm going to leave it there saying that we are at starting phase of leading that, and everybody will basically look into how soon this technology will overtake in terms of connecting devices and humans.
Yeah, go ahead. Any twitch I interpret as wanting to talk.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, Lynk Global is the creator of this category. And to answer Stephane's earlier question of, how did this all come about? Well, it was really based on the interaction of the three co-founders at Lynk. One of them asking the question is, why can't my mobile phone connect when I'm in the deepest, darkest jungles of Liberia, supporting the Ebola crisis? As a non-technical person asking that question, well, you're out of coverage. Well, why can't we connect my phone to a satellite? And by asking the right question to the right people, we went on then to invent the category and create the first satellite network that is designed for devices that are already existing in the marketplace. So there's that point. And then, what is the opportunity? Well, you often see mobile operators touting their coverage as covering 99-point-something%. But of course, that number is based on generally where people live. Sometimes it's based where people live and work. But of course, people don't stay at home all the time, and they're not at work all the time. They're moving. They're on holiday in the outback in Australia, or they're on a boat in the tropics. I mean, and we see this all the time with the satellites we have in operation. There are so many mobile phones that are out of coverage trying to connect. And that starts to form the basis for this very significant opportunity that there is.
Well, actually, in a second, but the way Iridium was founded, I understand, is one day the founder of Iridium and his wife were on a beach in the Bahamas, and the Mrs. Iridium founder said, "Jesus, honey, why can't my phone work here?" And it got the ball rolling.
So the big difference there, of course, is that was a requirement to have a different kind of phone. So the key point from Lynk's perspective is that our network is compatible with the 6, 7, 8 billion phones already on the planet, including feature phones, I would add as well, which are still very predominant in many countries.
Okay, Brian.
I mean, both touched on this, but there's still a lot of questions, right? It's how do you monetize it? How much are users willing to pay for it? What is the user experience, right? Because we are all more and more data hungry, right? So if you're not able to deliver a service where they can use all the applications that they're used to using on a terrestrial network, then comes the question, well, are you willing to pay an extra $10 or $15 or $20 per month for this service if you can't stream your Netflix or watch your favorite, reels or whatever it may be? There's still a lot of questions on the business case. I would say we've proven that phones can connect to satellites. We've proven that there is a use case in the event of a natural disaster, an emergency, or needing to keep in touch with your loved ones to let them know you're okay. Those use cases are proven, and I see value and ability to potentially monetize those. As you start getting into the higher application use cases, if you cannot deliver that experience that we're used to on 4G, LTE, 5G, it really starts to bear the question, okay, are the users really going to take this
Have we
up?
proven that it can work indoors? Because it seems to be a particular itch to the cellular folks.
I'll believe it when I see it. I haven't seen it yet, so.
Even in IEEE papers?
Well, the answer is it depends.
On what?
Well, it depends on how far indoors you are. What's the barrier between
what the roof is
outside
made
and
of,
inside?
as somebody said, huh? Whether if the roof is thick or if it's a normal house.
Again, it depends. But as you get into more rural and remote areas, the building infrastructures tend to be more smaller and you're closer to the outdoors anyway.
The QoS also, that Satender, you open that kind of worms. But that's, of course, it's not like the cellular services are perfect either. In fact, in IoT, most of IoT today is delivered through SIM cards. Yep. And the reason that they go to satellite is when suddenly the truck loses connectivity because it's under a bridge or it's at the edge of coverage, and somebody starts thinking, maybe I should put one of these round things on top of the vehicle. So it's a very much a moving picture. Can we have some numbers, by the way? Because Jim, Lynk is already providing some kind of service. And as I recall, PNG, the Solomon Islands, and the Third Pacific Territory that you've announced, but which I can't recall. What does take-up look like? What are the users doing with this? And are you getting revenue from these people, or is it all demonstrations?
Well, I mean, look, we have 5 satellites in orbit. I mean, that's a fraction of what one needs in a LEO constellation. So the ability to launch commercial service with certain operators has just been a foundational point in our journey. And the service is obviously still nascent, but it has had the ability for us to go down that path with the operators and to put it in the hands of real users and have it used. So we're quite happy with where we are right now.
Numbers?
no numbers available.
No, the Solomon Islands is a very small place anyway. There cannot be very many people that have been there, and yes, the coverage is obviously limited. Satender, you are much more in service.
Yes, we do, and it's been close to 2 years now. We have been providing commercial service. We provide services in IoT, automotive, and consumer segment, all three. When we say consumer, we do SMS over satellite, we do emergency SOS, and obviously we just proven voice on the geostationary satellite as well. So if you ask me number, I would say there are close to 10 million devices already on a network. There are almost 30% of traffic that comes from IoT devices. But rest everything is from a consumer devices. When I say consumer, it means emergency, SOS, and SMS. Those are the numbers if you're looking at that, I can give you.
And Brian, you have 2 million SBDs out there, I think, but you're not really in D2D proper, right?
No, we'll be in service in 2026, serving both the direct-to-device market and the IoT market. But you know, we're the existing satellite market leader in IoT, certainly.
Right. We'll revisit your individual stories now. We're still in generic questions. At this point, by the way, I should remind everyone, if you have questions, you can start putting them in Slido right now, and I will not wait until the last minute to let you ask them or to consider them. So, Satender, you're the one who has touched the most people, 10 million devices, is a lot of devices. You have an idea of what people expect. Of course, you're talking to the IoT crowd. None of them wants, I think, to put Netflix into the tractor where they have this installed. However, you have those conversations. The three of you have those conversations. There's a debate on whether Netflix, video, or broadband D2D is really what the market wants. Small confession, I know white areas and remote places intimately. In 3 weeks I will be in the Amazon jungle on a project. Let me tell you, an SMS out there is all we need, and it's a not life and death, but it's a day and night difference. I absolutely don't care about getting video, however. I want to get 5 words of text, like, my carburetor is broken, something like that. Comments on that. What's the market telling you? Out of all of the folks that you talk to, how many of them say, yeah, thanks very much for the IoT connectivity. Now, can we have voice?
There's something called good to have and must to have, right?
And must pay for.
and then what are you willing to pay for that, right? If we have to say that, is technology capable of providing Netflix in Amazon? Sure, why not? You pay for that. LEO orbits are coming up as fast as we're talking about, and they'll provide you Netflix of the world sitting in Amazon. You have to pay for that, right? But eventually, when we look at, and I'll take a step back and saying that when we look at how users are consuming internet itself, right? I think it's more, if you look at the way we consume application on our phone, it's all about chats and audio. Like, I'm pretty sure most of the people are using ChatGPT, Gemini, or DeepSeek on this room, right? What they use, they basically type few words and expect an answer, or they basically send an audio message back saying that they need a response, along with obviously other applications. If I have to basically correlate back to the NTN world, what we're looking at is what is important today is, can we basically prove the existing devices to connect to satellite already? Yes, we have proven, and that's where the capability of emergency SOS and SMS is coming up. And that's, when I say SMS is not being provided by Skylo, we work with MNO operators to provide the services because it's their SIM card, their end customers, and we are just a facilitator for that, exactly. Have people asked for broadband and other capabilities? Yes, they have asked for it. But when you dig deeper in terms of why do you need that, I haven't got a short answer of why they need it. Like
nobody, for instance, wants to do remote inspection with video or anything like that?
I don't think I don't think people have even thought about that, because till now they don't have any option right now. The moment you give them saying, okay, you can be able to get the data from a remote genset which is sitting in Amazon for you, or maybe in a remote forest, and you will be able to do remote diagnostic of that. They are so much happy with that, right? But if they want more, obviously they want more. The technology will evolve after a point of time, and they will like to have all those new applications coming in where they can do video inspection after that. But right now it's all about connecting the devices back to ecosystem and providing 24/7 connectivity.
Okay. From either of you, signals from the market on, you're both narrowband companies. If AST was on stage, we might hear a different sound, but what's the market telling you?
I mean, I think there's categories of use cases, right? I mean, if we talk about IoT, something like remote inspection or remote monitoring, we've got use cases today that use, our mid-band services with compressed videos to monitor a dam or something like that, right, over our network. Now, a lot of things in the satellite industry, you worry about user density and how many users you've got under a particular spot beam, for example. So as these things really start coming to market and you figure out the size of the market and how users are using it, you start figuring out what level or quality of service you can deliver. But I would say in IoT, the lion's share of the use cases are kind of that lower end, narrow band, connecting sensors, monitors, tracking fleets. A lot of those things that we've been doing, for quite some time now, those are still what our users are coming to us saying, that's our primary use case. We'd love it on a unified platform that can connect both my cellular connectivity and my satellite connectivity.
Jim, you do have broadband in the longer term in your business plan, I believe.
Absolutely. I mean, the path to mobile broadband is very clear, and the foundation is there in terms of the technology and the satellites we've built and we're building. And in terms of the market, I mean, just take, for example, the Philippines. I mean, 117 million people. Half of those people are classified as rural dwelling. The coverage of the Philippines as a geography, it's hard to get the number, but let's say at least 40% of the actual geography has no mobile coverage. I mean, you're talking about enormous amounts of disconnectivity that is just not evident to the average person or average comms executive. So we just signed, and it was announced a week and a half ago, we just signed Alderdice Smart as our second MNO there, adding to Globe. And that is, a key part of our route to market is to bring those mobile operators on board, integrate with them, and get them ready with field testing and trialing and customer piloting ready as we roll out the network.
And by the way, what the tens of millions of disconnected rural people or me in a jungle, what we want or don't want doesn't necessarily matter, because it's at the end, your customers are the MNOs. It's what they want to do. It's how you fit in their strategies. If they don't want Netflix on the network because they don't have the bandwidths in the urban areas, or they don't want to cut a deal with Netflix, maybe no Netflix. I tend to think a great deal of value for them is for people who spend 5% out of the city or out of the village, and then if you give them connectivity during this 5% of their time, they will switch their entire subscription to that particular MNO, and the MNO will make its money that way and not necessarily care about what's happening in this 5% segment of their market. I don't know if you've had a lot of conversations along those lines with the MNOs, but they have their own strategies. You don't even necessarily have to care what they do with it in the end of the day, right?
Well, I mean, if they would love to have 100% coverage in this case, example, the Philippines, right? They would love that.
Sure do. They get beaten on the head all the time on coverage.
And the reason they can't do that is the limitation of cellular tower technology, right? There's too much CapEx and OpEx involved. It's much more efficient to deliver from satellite.
Mm. Can we open the Slido questions in case there are any? If there's none, we can happily chug along. We have so many of them. Okay, what a surprise, a question from a Mr. Deselding. In case you can't read them out, for James, how do you see the schedule of building out Lynk's constellation following the merger with Omnispace and the partnership with SES? Yeah, that's you did have a plan for a 150 satellites. Correct the number. I don't memorize everything. Where is that now? And now you have 60 megahertz of spectrum that you've acquired. What are you going to do with this?
Well, yeah, so let me clarify. So 2 weeks ago, it was announced Lynk would be merging with Omnispace. That merger will close either the end of this year or going into next year. Omnispace brings to the merger 60 megahertz of S-band with high priority filings of the ITU and market access in many countries. And of course, you know, for Omnispace, Lynk has over 50 mobile operator customers signed up to launch the service. And we both, as companies, have a number of satellites in orbit. And you know, we have the patents and we have the engineering team, and we've been building satellites. And what you'll see in terms of the constellation rollout, we've got some satellites launching in the next quarter. And whilst I don't want to be too specific in this forum, but we will start to ramp up during the second half of next year. You'll see a lot more activity in that area.
It's how many satellites ultimately?
Well,
that
the first,
you will be happy with?
Yeah, the first phase will be 320, and the next phase will be another 320.
So SES getting into the picture did not allow you to reduce the number of satellites?
So we SES is a very good partner of ours, and they're a major strategic shareholder of Lynk and also of Omnispace, and will continue to be part of the partnership following the merger. And they've been giving us input and expertise in operations, engineering, regulatory, many areas, and we're really benefiting from that.
And in terms of your systems architecture, SES, what they provide now is, apart from all the advice, the relationships and so on, is they would take care of the backhaul of your network. The statements from SES and what they want to do with you have been a little bit vague-ish, along the lines of, we'll do stuff.
Yeah, well, it's very much evolving. I mean, primarily it's an investment by them, but then the second level is evolving the partnership and where they can give value add and help us accelerate. So part of what Stephane was alluding to is we are incorporating the SES mPOWER MEO network into our network for the backhaul of the traffic. And that just gives us another option for how to get traffic to the ground, as well as accelerating our rollout by utilizing that MEO network.
I'm not forgetting question number 2. I think you've touched, but question number 3 was for you also. I think you've touched upon connecting unmodified phones. Exactly what sort of phones can be connected to those networks, however, that's a line of questioning. So, Satender, your network today, from what I could find, in terms of public market, it's free on Google Pixel 9 phones. And anybody in the room has a Google Pixel 9 in their pocket? Because I sure don't. And not putting the blame on you. Other companies have announced massive deals and said, hooray, now if you pay $2,000 for a top-of-the-line Apple phone, you can take that to the top of the mountain and start jumping across canyons with it. I don't know how many people do that. It's annoying that it's a luxury item. At some point, it has to connect the $80 aftermarket phones that ordinary people do have. Especially out there, the unconnected, let me tell you, what they have is the low end. When is that going to happen?
I mean, it's pretty much
and more specifically, your deal with Google is 2 years. What happens after that?
Let me answer that from a device perspective first, and then I'll answer about the Google thing. If you look at the device ecosystem, we are enabling a $20 or $40 asset tracker today to connect to satellite. So it's not a matter of whether a $1,000 device is able to connect to satellite or it's a $100 device going to connect. The modules we're talking about is an existing cellular modems which are basically connecting to satellites, which are less than $5 for you, to be very honest with you. Now, how do you basically take it to an asset tracker? You build it over a smartphone is something which as an industry is looking into, saying that, do we really need to put this into a $100 phone right now? Because then it's talking about a mass. And just to give an example, right? If Samsung wants to do it for 100 million devices, which they ship over a period of a year, then they're talking about $500 million investment into just for D2D on every device there, right? So they're focusing on devices and market first, and when there is a demand coming up from developing countries like Southeast Asia itself, right, or Europe, they'll keep on building. It's not about the cost right now. I don't think D2D is in that space where we're talking about cost. It's the same module cost.
So it's a strategy of hitting the rich people first.
Every technology is all about that, right? You need enablers and you need basically early adopters, and then you basically go to the masses.
And maybe inserting that service into something as tightly packaged as a cell phone is also not as trivial a thing to do as it would seem, right? Because there's power limitations, size limitations, antenna limitations, all the device power consumption limitations, all of this. Brian, question number 3 is very relevant. So if I come to Iridium today and I say, I really hesitate between buying a bunch of SBDs and taking your new end-to-end NTN direct service, I think it's what you call it these days. What do you tell me?
Well, the beauty of it is that we're going to have both services available, right? So
then
it's
it
much
makes the
easier.
conversation even more difficult.
It's much easier to sell something that you've got versus something that you don't have. So we're going to have both services operating on the network. As I kind of alluded to earlier in the panel, we still have customers that have particular use cases that require a certain level of service that we know will be served by our SBD service. And then we've got new customers, especially through the MNO channels, coming to us saying, hey, sometimes I'm on cellular or terrestrial network and I have a need to be on a satellite network 5-10% of the time. And those are going to be the customers that are going to adopt NTN Direct. So we still see both channels and both services operating in parallel.
Selling into developed and developing countries, no, I'm not quite sure. Some of them, China, sometimes on odd days they are developing and even days they are developed. But is there any difference in terms of approach?
Selling into them? Were you going to say something? Okay. I mean, I don't know if the approach is very different selling into them. Of course, there's different regulatory approaches, which is what I think some of this question is alluding to. The various regulatory bodies have different rules and regulations on how you operate, how you deliver the service, how you bill for the service. We've been doing that for a really long time, so we have a quite extensive experience in operating in those countries. But in terms of our go-to-market strategy, it'll be leveraging the MNOs and their ability to reach those customers and their regulatory power within those particular countries.
Starlink. I don't even have to say a full sentence, I think. You see what I mean.
Who are they? No, just kidding.
I don't know. It's somebody. It's a name. It's Starlink.
Well, they're not just missing from D2D. They're missing from the dish-based service panel as well. So.
Nobody wants to touch this.
From our point of view, they're a market stimulator. It's been quite good, actually. Yeah. So they only have.
Yeah, competition is great. We all know that.
Well, we have over 50 mobile operators signed up, and they have significantly less. So, why is that? I know why, but do you know?
I would say, to James's point, they've brought the spotlight on the industry. They've brought a lot of attention. They've brought investment, and I would say that a lot of the mobile network operators and the device ecosystem, had Starlink not necessarily put the light and spotlight on this industry, they may not be as willing to collaborate with other satellite operators. So they've done a good job there. I think what they're doing on the D2D or IoT side, with the shared spectrum with mobile network operators, for now that'll be regional. The spectrum that they've obviously recently acquired or acquiring from EchoStar is going to take some time to come to the market. So they're going to have to convince the device ecosystem that they need to incorporate these bands moving forward. So we'll have to see how this all plays out, but they're definitely the elephant in the room.
This sometimes have such a tough time convincing the industry to do things that they want them to do. Satender, we are out of time, so are you talking with Starlink? Yes or no?
No. but
Okay, so we can move on. Because the final question, I think is very interesting, will be done in 10 seconds, but it's such a good question. Links to drones. No one mentions the military market in connection to D2D. Right now, the war in Ukraine is fought entirely with very small drones. They run on cellular networks. They could, putting them all on satellite could be significant. Is any of you looking deeply into this, making money from defense? Do you think it's a big niche for you? Iridium, defense is huge for Iridium.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important market to us that we serve today. We do command and control on drones. They utilize our IoT services, our mid-band services. This is kind of where I see the separation on use cases of proprietary versus the standard. You know, a device that is purpose-built to operate on one particular network and provide a class of service or quality of service, for those types of use cases, I would say that those users are going to be very keen to stick to that.
Satender, how many of your 10 million devices are in uniform?
I don't think we have done anything drones right now. We are still talking about narrowband, so we haven't done much about this right now.
Okay. We could go on for another 30 minutes because the topic is so rich, but for now, this is all we have. Thank you very much for being with us this morning and for your questions.